It's hot, like really hot. Hey, V2 here with Accountable Mornings, and welcome to One on One with V2, a series where I want to add a little bit more context to my daily check-in. So this morning during my check-in, one thing that I mentioned was I broke my fast early. I was about 45 hours into my 90-hour fast, which started on a Wednesday and was going to end on a Sunday. Come Friday, during my check-in, one of the things that I mentioned was how hot it was, how hot it has been, and how hot it will be. Where I'm at, we've been averaging temperatures in the 105s, 110s for the past week and a half, and it hasn't stopped, and it's continuing until the end of next week. So we're hitting what the weather.com people are saying, extreme heat waves, stay indoors. Did I stay indoors? Not really. So what I have been doing is I have been waking up early in the morning and I've been doing my daily walks, which have been great. Whenever I do my check-ins, it's typically about 6:15, 6:30 in the morning. It's about 80 degrees at that time, so it's not too bad. It's very doable and nothing, it's just fine. However, I decided in the afternoon that I wasn't productive enough during the day, so I went to the backyard to do some work. As I was doing that work, I took a couple moments to lie down to relax a little bit. The place I decided to lie down was on one of our chases, and I lied down and I accidentally fell asleep. I fell asleep a little longer than I thought I was going to, and I didn't realize how much I was sweating. I was sweating so much to a point where I had beads of sweat dripping pretty much from every pore of my body. I eventually woke up and noticed all the sweat, noticed how soaked the chase was, and I tried to stand up. And when I stood up, I felt an incredible amount of dizziness. I was actually so dizzy that I had to sit back down, take a few deep breaths, and then stand back and try again. I did get up, I started moving a little bit more, and I actually had to sit down again. So this time I actually sat on the ground, even though it was burning hot, because I was so dizzy and I didn't have the stability I needed to walk around. I made my way to the cold plunge. I opened a cover and I started trying to splash myself with cold water, but again felt dizzy, had to sit on the floor again. This time when I sat on the floor, I took my phone out and I messaged my wife and I said, "Help, please hurry." Thankfully, she had her phone right in her hand. She rushed outside immediately, found me on the floor of, right next to our cold plunge, and started to panic. I don't blame her. I was freaking out. The last text message I sent her said, "Help, please hurry." So it is only natural for her to have that type of reaction. At this point, she's at my side. She grabbed a rag, threw it in the cold plunge to get it all nice and cold, and started just rubbing it on my body to make sure that I can start cooling down. The water felt great. However, I started feeling dizzy while sitting on the ground that I ended up passing out for a few seconds. My recollection is that I was speaking with her, and all of a sudden, I had this thought of, it was like a surreal dream. It was something that I knew was not possible at that very moment, that I pretty much snapped out of that dream, got up, opened my eyes, and looked at my wife and said, "Did I pass out?" And her first response was yes. And she actually had her phone in her hand about to call 911. I asked her not to call 911, which was probably a mistake on my end, but this was something I've experienced before. And the last time we called 911 and I was transported to the hospital, I had to wait in the ER for 3 to 4 hours before I received any type of attention. And when I finally got that attention, I spoke with the doctor. He gave me an IV, and then I had to be gurneyed out to the hallway where I stayed another 3 hours as a check, just to make sure that I wasn't going to relapse or anything like that. Because all of the symptoms felt the same to me, I felt that I had an idea of what I needed to do, and I could speak to my wife and talk her through everything that we needed to do. Was that the right move? Probably not. I probably should have just let her call 911, and I probably should have been escorted to the hospital to go to ER to do a full checkup. I didn't. Luckily, I'm fine. I feel great today. I am taking it easy, but in hindsight, just to be safe, just for peace of mind for my wife and my family, it was probably something that we should have done. After I'm cooled down a little bit, my wife helps me up and I make my way into the house. I waddle over to our kitchen island, and at that point, it's all about hydration. Water, Gatorade, IV packs, hydration packs, whatever I can get my hands on or whatever my wife can get her hands on. She brings it over, and I just drink like crazy. I drink like there is no tomorrow, which makes sense because of how dehydrated I was. After rehydrating, I noticed that I feel very shaky. I do have an elevated heart rate. I have a little bit of numbness in my fingertips, and I feel really shaky. And my first thought was, I feel like I have to break my fast in order to get some blood sugar in, or in order to get some carbs into my bloodstream to help with the shaking. Before I did my fasting journey, I know when I was really hungry and I would get the shakes, it was due to low blood sugar, and so I would just eat something in order to add that additional blood sugar into my system and get rid of all of that shaking. So when I decided to break my fast, my wife said we need to get food in you right away. I opted for a poke salad. I know how quick that is and how convenient it can be. Pretty much you go to the store, it's Subway style, so you just say, I want this, 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 and this, and they just throw it in the thing, mix it together, and give it to you. So we jump the van, get to the store, order the poke salad, come home, and my intent was to eat right away. However, I went to the bedroom and I lied down, and I really just did not feel like eating. I felt like throwing up, but because I was still in a fasting state, I had nothing to throw up. I had the intention of dry heaving, but there was nothing happening. I just had that beginning sensations of my body wanting to regurgitate something. My wife is in the bedroom with me, and we're continuing our dialogue. She wants to make sure that I'm okay. We go through some symptom checks, so making sure that I still have grip strength, making sure that when I smile, my lips don't drop, I still have muscle control in my face, making sure that I don't have slurred speech. Pretty much a lot of the common checks that you would look at in a person that would have suffered a stroke. Everything seemed okay. Again, still didn't feel like eating at that point, so the food is just sitting there waiting for me, and I'm just not feeling it at that moment. I did eventually get to a point where I was able to sit up, and I just all of a sudden was starving. At that point, I dove into the food. I finished that entire salad, which was a pretty sizable portion, in about 2 minutes. Really took no time to eat. I was still kind of shaky after the salad, so I asked, do we have any carbs? Breads, rice, whatever. And she said, I have the thing for you. So she runs to the kitchen, she heats something up, brings it out, and it was actually leftover cheese bread and garlic knots from Domino's that our friends had the other night, and we just had some of the leftover for whoever wanted it the next day or the next weekend. So she came out with the Domino's, I consumed that, and I immediately fall asleep. I wake up about 2 hours later, and I feel normal. I have no symptoms, I have no shaking, I have no numbness. My heart rate is normal, in a normal range, somewhere between 55 and 72 beats per minute. So everything feels great. I don't have a headache, I feel fine. But because of everything that had happened up to that point, I wanted to make sure I took it easy. I do have dinner in bed, so I'm still continuing my impromptu refeed window. Again, I don't really mind. It's something that I need to do, and it's part of my recovery process. This was such a crazy experience because over the past 107 days, I felt fine. I would do my fast. Yes, there was a bit of an adjustment period where my body was like, dude, you're not eating. But when I had my refeed windows, it was just free-for-all, eat whatever you want, and I felt great after that. Went back into my fasting, did a 90, a 65 hour, a 90, a 65 hour, or back-to-back 65s. I did a couple back-to-back 90s. I even did a fast that was longer than the 90 hours that I originally planned. Everything was great. I kept moving forward. Everything was very positive for me. Then come yesterday, it was a mix of me in the middle of a 90-hour fast, the temperature being 110, and me being really stupid and being outside during an excessive heat wave. On top of all that, one thing I noticed and one thing that I've recently learned as I'm going through this process is my hydration level. I thought that I was hydrated. I've been drinking so much water that my urine was actually clear. In some research, clear urine is a sign of overhydration. At least from what I've read. The clear urine is actually a sign of overconsumption of fluids, and you're actually getting rid of some of the electrolytes in your body. So again, another thing that was added to this massive mix of hysteria, and I suffered what we feel or what we believe is heat exhaustion. I would say it's heat exhaustion and dehydration. So lesson learned moving forward, don't go out in excessive heat. I mean, that should be a given, but I feel like I've done it before and I was fine. And I think it would normally be fine if I was eating regular, if I had enough to drink, if I was not fasting at the same time. I feel like this was just a big combination of things that would be fine individually, but all combined created this situation, this unfortunate situation. So my lesson is, if I'm fasting, don't go in excessive heat. Try to do everything before temperatures get over 100. And honestly, one of the bigger lessons that I have to learn in this situation is sometimes I don't need to be productive 24/7. Because I feel like in the beginning, the reason that I went outside in that excessive heat was because I did not have this feeling of fulfillment that I was doing something or being productive. And I didn't really have to do anything at that point. I elected to do something because I wanted to fulfill that feeling that I had inside. There's times when you should probably just relax. If you don't have something to do, sit down, journal, read, watch TV, even though I don't watch as much TV anymore. But it's not worth risking being out in excessive heat trying to do things just to fulfill that notion of needing to do something, needing to be productive. I think what it can also help with that notion of productivity is planning. Something I've been trying to do is daily planning. Yesterday I did a really poor job of it, but typically I would try to do all of my activities in the morning, like walk the dog, do my exercises, and then come back inside and do my daily planning. I would just kind of go hour by hour for things that I knew I was going to do, and just note them down on when and where, or when and what day I would like to do them. I just really did a bad job at it yesterday, so I'm going to try to be better about it moving forward. Thanks for tuning in to One-on-One with V2. I appreciate you listening to my situation here, and I hope to have more of these videos up whenever I have a little bit more context to feed into my daily check-in. Before I let you go, I'd like to ask for you to hit that subscribe button and also hit that like button to help keep me accountable. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for keeping me accountable. Take care.